there, friends. You're listening to In the Books, a period drama podcast hosted by the following two crazy ladies.
I'm Michelle. I live in the State. You can find me at Musings on Instagram and Twitter.
And I'm Rita. I live in England. I'm at Annoying Rita on Instagram and Twitter.
And welcome to the fourth episode in our series of podcasts on the Empress, de Kaiserin. This week's episode was called The Hunt. And here comes another lengthy recap.
Okay, so the episode begins with a flashback to 6 years prior. You know we love a flashback.
Yes.
It's to the revolutions of 1848, and the palace is scrambling to pack and evacuate Vienna as it's under attack from the revolutionaries. Sophie explains to baby Franz that his uncle, the Emperor, is finished, and it's now up to him to lead. Franz is like, hey, what about my father? But Sophie dismisses him as a snivelling wretch.
Damn!
Oh. He seems fine to me.
Yeah.
Franz is nervous, so she tells him that they'll do it together. In the corner watching them is Maximilian. Ooh. After the titles, we thankfully cut back to the present. Sophie shoots up following a nightmare to find Matron watching her sleep. Not creepy at all.
No.
Nope. But she has some breaking news. Elisabeth has not had a period in 30 days, which is way too soon to start assuming she's pregnant. But Sophie orders her minion to make sure she is.
Meanwhile, Franz is watching Elisabeth sleep. Man, does this show love a parallel. When she awakes and makes fun of him, and Franz remarks that she is already sick of him after 2 months. We missed the honeymoon? No fair!
Heartbroken.
Yeah. Anyway, they start making out, but are cruelly cut short of a trip to Bone Town by their respective responsibilities. Franz has a meeting with his cabinet, and Elisabeth has to go sit in some donkey's milk for 2 hours, one assumes. But before the beauty regimen can begin, she must first have breakfast. And what a treat it is. Matron's wig insists she drink a raw egg instead of a more palatable cup of coffee. She is prepping to bear the Habsburg offspring, Rocky Balboa style. Not satisfied with that, Matron ups the ante and dishes up the placenta of a woman who has just given birth. One of the ladies in waiting's retches in disgust. And who can blame her? No one wants an heir that badly.
Over at the cabinet meeting, the ministers are discussing the French. Since Max's little intervention at the wedding, all diplomatic communiques have been severed. Max sips his tea and ducks suspicious glances.
Mm-hmm.
Things are not much better with the Russians, as they're still on the Austrian border. Franz asks the room for suggestions, and when they have 0, he decides to invite the Russian Tsar's son to Vienna. Sophie worries that Tsar Nicholas will surely see that as a provocation, but Franz hopes to appeal to Alexander as a fellow youth. Young things.
Yes.
Gen Z. I don't know. Franz then heads into the palace grounds to confront his brother. But first, they get into a very lengthy, very aggressive fencing fight. Franz wins, of course, because Max is all talk and 0 strategic thinking. Franz accuses him of avoiding him since the wedding. I imagine staging a coup must be keeping him quite busy.
Yeah.
Max tells him that he isn't there to entertain him, and when Franz suggests that court life is unsatisfying and he might enjoy an occupation, Max is outraged. Commander-in-Chief of the Imperial Fleet is apparently not a good enough gig for him. He wants to be made Governor of Bohemia. Or something. Just any leadership role, really. Franz sizes him up, and there is a brutally long silence before he tells him, "You're no statesman, Maxie. I bet the Mexican firing squad that kills him would also agree with that statement."
Yes.
Max then accuses Franz of being unable to share. I mean, does he not understand what an absolute monarchy is? He can't just be like parceling out lands to his brothers.
Max
strops off to plan his little coup.
Elisabeth is sitting with her ladies doing some embroidery, listening to them gossip about the latest engagements when Franz approaches Elisabeth and says he has a little free time. Cut to Elisabeth sketching Franz by a lake. I say sketching because it seems to mostly be a ploy to get him naked, because she insists he take his shirt off and then his trousers, and before too long, they're making love on the banks of said lake.
Well, chicken whip, whip.
It's a very messy
Sorry.
and muddy affair. Honestly, must really want it, because, ew.
Ugh. I would need several showers.
Oh, yeah. In the afterglow, Elisabeth feels his neck scar, and he finally opens up about the attack. He tells her that the people are still angry about the poverty they live in. Elisabeth tells him he can change that, and they embrace. We then head into an awkward-as-hell family dinner. Max tries to be friendly towards Elisabeth, and they joke all about the handkerchiefs she is now embroidering. I hate it. I hate it. Franz receives a note telling him the Tsar's son is heading home from Hesse? Hesse?
Haas?
I'm sorry.
I think like Haas. I don't know Germans. I'm sorry.
Sorry. And going via Bayern.
That's Bayern.
Bayern?
As in Bayern Munich.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That I know because football.
If they send out a letter immediately, they could set up a meeting that weekend. Sophie immediately objects. They can't organize a dignified reception on such short notice. Elisabeth suggests something more intimate. Her father always took people hunting when there was something important to discuss. Sophie objects to her characterization of the court as a circus, but Franz looks won over by the opportunity to talk in a more private setting and quickly agrees, much to his mother's chagrin. Sophie then tries to suggest that Elisabeth's delicate condition means she should stay at home. Elisabeth decides she wants to go, so Franz listens to her and declares it will be Elisabeth, him, and the Tsar's son and wife. That's it. No Sophie, just the four of them.
Bye-bye, mother. Sophie is obviously furious and commiserates with her only remaining ally, Matron, who looks delighted to be allowed into her confidences again. I mean, the thirst levels.
Oh,
she was
God.
parched. They agree that Sophie has to be at the hunt, but Matron tells her that she should allow things to follow their natural course. Let Elisabeth fall flat on her face and let the whole world see it. What real harm can Elisabeth do anyway? Oh boy. Just you fucking wait, Henry Higgins. The next morning, the court are awaiting their carriages to leave for the hunt. The ladies in waiting are gossiping as usual when Amalia, aka the bossy one, catches Leontine checking out Alexander von Bach, the minister and closest friend of Franz. You know, the guy with the little glasses. He's cute.
Yes, he is cute.
Amalia derides her for crushing on a glorified accountant and calls her vulgar. Girl, let people fancy people.
Seriously.
Come on. Meanwhile, Bach finds Franz at his carriage just in time to have him sign the loan offer for the railway line. Yay!
Hooray!
He and Elisabeth look really happy, but that mood is immediately cut by his mother hauling ass into the carriage. She did not ask permission. Cue the most awkward carriage ride ever. The newlyweds appear to be wishing the ground would swallow them up.
Oh my gosh. Well, they arrive at Ohof and are greeted by Franz's father, Karl, and Sophie manages to insult him immediately and storm off to the garden like a spoiled child. Elisabeth follows her and tries to explain that she felt it was too important an occasion to miss, and she doesn't think a weekend in the woods would make her lose her child. Sophie scoffs at her confidence and explains that she, quote, bathed in salt until her skin flaked off like fish scales, and ate so many raw eggs that she vomited every morning. It didn't help. It still took her 6 years to conceive. It is challenging having a baby.
I mean, it might have been easier if you weren't puking every morning.
Seriously. And you know, your skin is the largest organ in your body.
Yeah.
So having it flake off like a fish scale?
Not a good sign.
Not a
Do you
good
think
sign.
this was before they found the donkey's milk? Like,
Oh.
what was going on?
Maybe the donkey's milk was supposed to help with the fish scales. I don't know.
It's all making sense.
Anyhow, Elisabeth is like, yeah, I know, my mother had 8. Sophie doesn't care for this because this is an heir, and heirs are special, and suggests that Elisabeth complete her first task before seeking another. Meanwhile, back in Vienna, Max has set up a secret meeting with the cabinet and declares that the emperor has lost his mind. Wow, big leap to make there. The ministers worry that they risk being invaded on both borders now that Napoleon III is so pissed off with them. Max explains that he has been reassured that France won't invade as long as they aren't allied with Russia. Oh, and if they make Max their new emperor.
More detail.
That's right, the whole room just became complicit with his coup. One teensy tiny problem, though. One of them points out that the emperor, remember Franz, might succeed in striking a peace agreement with the Tsar's son. Max smirks and says, "Leave that to me." I'll start calling you Snidely.
He just needs to be stroking a cat during some of these scenes.
Mm-hmm. Really.
Back at Auhof, I think that's how you pronounce it, and the household has gathered outside to greet future Alexander II of Russia and his wife Maria. He immediately gravitates towards Elisabeth and compares her beauty to the rising sun. Cringe. There is kind of already an off vibe coming from him, I'm not gonna lie, but I love his wife. She's delightful, and for the rest of this episode, she will be carrying around a tiny dog, like an early noughties Paris Hilton. We stan. Okay, so next morning, the castle is abuzz of activity as everyone prepares for the hunt. Franz is showing Alexander a whole range of guns, but he is being unsurprisingly finicky about his rifle. The man can't shoot. Max then crawls out of his hole and begins complaining about the early start time. Everyone is surprised to see him because he wasn't invited, but they just have to roll with it. Elisabeth then chooses her own gun for the hunt, and everyone by Franz is shocked. I don't know why. Sophie is not having any of this nonsense, though, and insists the ladies go for a gentle stroll in the woods instead. Elisabeth agrees on the condition that Sophie doesn't join them. Ouch.
Dang. Well, on their walk, Maria and Elisabeth bond. They discuss the fact that every empress has a thing. Marie Antoinette had her dresses, Catherine the Great had her lovers, etc., etc. Maria assumes that hunting is Elisabeth's thing, and explains that her thing is animals. She has 4 dozen horses, dogs, 2 monkeys, and a donkey. Ooh, handy for that donkey milk. She also builds hospitals, and hopes that she is remembered for that. Elisabeth remarks that she hopes she is remembered for being a good empress, and not just her hair. Oh, honey.
Ooh.
We have some bad news for you. Maria whips out her fan and says, "Your hair really is splendid." I do believe that might be some shade. Meanwhile, Franz is trying to schmooze Alexander on their hunt by telling him he's read about his plan to abolish serfdom with great interest. That's right, serfdom wasn't abolished in Russia until 1861. A full 300 years after it was abolished in England by Queen Elizabeth.
Crazy.
You know, the first one.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Anyway, Franz is trying to flatter him, but Alexander is resistant. He says that his father saved Franz's ass during the 1848 revolutions, and now he's being ungrateful by refusing to ally with them in their moment of need. But talks of peace can wait. and they continue to hunt.
The two parties then meet up for a picnic in the woods. There is a full tea set and a harpist. Casual and intimate, my arse. Elizabeth is lounging across a settee, because no sitting on the ground for the Empress, when she is approached by Max. They gossip about Alexander's numerous affairs, and Max declares himself relieved. Elizabeth has been ignoring him since the wedding, but now she's laughing with him. Sigh. So he's wormed himself back into her good books, and all he had to do was make some jokes. I hate it, Elizabeth. Please, raise your standards.
Seriously.
Anyway, Elizabeth then approaches Franz, who's beaming at her. He tells her the hunt was a great idea, and they smile up at each other in marital bliss. I wish this could last.
Yeah.
Still at the picnic, Franz's maybe daddy? Carl.
Yeah, maybe daddy.
Who knows? Carl meets the ladies in waiting and takes particular interest in the woman pretending to be Leontine from Apathy. Carl, of course, recognizes the name and is like, OMG, the Apathys from Transylvania. I know your parents. Fuck.
Crap!
She manages to make polite small talk, but when he mentions she spoke French as a child, it's obvious that fake Leontine does not.
Whoops.
Amalia decides to be an absolute bitch and starts speaking to her in French. Leontine plays it off and goes to grab a drink. Like, yes, this one, okay, bye. Amalia follows her and tells her that Leontine is a riddle, but she's going to solve it. Leontine's like, enough of this shit, and gets right in her face and says, leave me alone, you whore! Not sure that's gonna throw her off of the scent, babe.
Meanwhile, Alexander is peeing in the woods, so Max, forever a creep, goes to pee beside him. You know, like you do. They get to chatting and Alexander asks him if his pretty brother can cope with Elizabeth, or does she need variety? Gross.
So gross. But I respect that he can see
gross.
that Franz is pretty. Like, that's some awareness. Anyway.
Yeah. But it's like, damn. Keep it in your damn... Oh, well, okay, you're using it right now, so you can't really put it back in your pants at that particular moment, but you get the drift. Anyhow, Max gives a patented spiel about how Austria's neutrality in the war is really a ploy to gain superiority over Europe. But Alexander is dumb, so he falls for it. Back at the picnic, Alexander insists that Elizabeth join them on the hunt. Off they trot into the forest, and wouldn't you know, the two of them are soon alone together. He tries to intimidate her by pointing out the darkness and the silence in the forest. But she refuses to bite and insists she's not scared to be alone with him.
Maybe you should have been.
Sophie is staring at a rocking horse that used to belong to the ghost baby. Carl enters the room and remarks that she could ride on it for hours. Sophie looks hurt and tells him not to speak about her. Carl tells her it would do her some good to talk about her more. For real, though. Seriously. And even begins to compare their late daughter to Elizabeth. So, well, Sophie is like, how dare you? Our little girl was nothing like Elizabeth.
Well, she was 4, so yeah.
Yeah. And Carl remarks that Elizabeth is also like her. How Freudian of Franz that he chose a wife just like his mother. Yeah. I want a girl just like the girl who married dear old dad.
Back in the woods. And it's now almost dusk. They've been out there since dawn. Like, this is a very long day. I could not understand. Elizabeth and Alexander are still all alone. He asks her about whether he should put his trust in Franz. Elizabeth backs her husband up, insisting he wants to improve the nation, not expand it. To be fair, it's already fucking huge.
Yeah.
Alexander is dubious and suggests that the future of the enormous, cumbersome empire lies not with Franz, but with the Empress. And then he leans into her provocatively. Basically, if she doesn't fuck him, he won't support Franz. But before Elisabeth can turn him down, he pushes her aside in order to take aim at a wild boar he spotted. He misses, and the boar charges towards him very angrily. He reloads and fires again. Misses a second time. The boar is now right in front of him and about to attack. And so Elisabeth finally takes aim and kills the boar in the last moments. Straight between the eyes. Kind of amazing. To add petrol onto the bonfire of his masculinity, the rest of the hunting party has witnessed Elisabeth saving the day, and Maximilian in particular is clapping wildly and making a huge deal about it. And Alexander just looks pissed. He's not here for it. Back at the castle that evening, everyone raises a toast to Elisabeth for her amazing feat. Well, Franz and Sophie's toasts are somewhat tepid, as they can read the obvious anger radiating from Alexander, who refuses to drink in her honour. Instead, he slams down his drink and abruptly announces that he and Maria are leaving immediately. Franz follows him to try and calm him down, but Alexander accuses him of giving him a defective rifle to humiliate him. So we're no longer in the realm of rationality. He tells Franz that he cannot trust him. His grandmother, that's Catherine the Great to us plebs, always said, when something seems too good to be true, it's probably shit. Franz tries to appeal to Alexander's sense of fairness. That doesn't quite work, as Alexander can point to his own family's history of violent suppression in Hungary, Venetia, Lombardy. All unjust. And he has an excellent point, so Franz just has to demand he pulls his troops off of the border immediately. Alexander's like, or what? You'll get your wife with her rifle? Franz then snarks, well, at least she wouldn't miss, which is such a mic drop retort.
Damn!
10 out of 10 for brutality. Possibly too effective. Because they end up kind of declaring war with each other. Mad whoops. Alexander storms off. Franz looks shaken and horrified. I mean, he's ended up being dragged into the fucking war against his will. We knew it would happen, but damn.
Yeah. Just like he didn't want to have happen. The court all go inside to bid a very tense farewell to Alexander and Maria. Franz then approaches his carriage and tells Elisabeth she can follow along with the rest of the court in the morning. Ooh, cold shoulder. Elisabeth, picking up on the tense vibes he is radiating, asks him if he thinks this is all her fault. He tells her that no, it isn't, but she could have shown some restraint. But, restraint is not really a word that's in Elisabeth's wheelhouse. Not her forte. She asks him if he knows about how Alexander was treating her. The silence from Franz is deafening. He then leaves with his mother. Elisabeth then gets in her own carriage and decides to follow him. She fucks it all up by inviting Max with her because he's manipulative as ever, and he has decided to tell her she is magical and perfect and she never makes a mistake. Franz is the bad guy for ever doubting her, blah, 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 blah. And then they proceed to get hideously drunk on the way home. Back at the palace in Vienna, Leontine has another clandestine meeting with her revolutionary boyfriend. He is annoyed for not telling him about the hunt in the forest. It's far from the palace, minimal guards, plenty of cover. It's the perfect spot to attempt an assassination of Franz. Leontine asks him to consider doing this another way. It kind of seems like they were wrong about Franz. Her boyfriend looks at her in disgust and accuses her of forgetting where she came from. She's not a countess. She was born in the gutter, and that's exactly where she'll end up. He tells her that they are all going to die, and she needs to pick a side.
I might suggest that he's the one that's going to die by the end of this season.
Seriously.
Okay. Franz watches as Elisabeth and Max drunkenly stumble out of their carriage holding hands.
Fuck.
Quite the look. Franz doesn't look happy. Elisabeth makes a half-assed attempt to apologize about the Alexander thing, but Franz is no longer mad about that. He's now annoyed about this. She's run off with Max again. He tells her he won't have it anymore, and Elizabeth once again is exasperated that someone is speaking to her like a child. Maybe listen to the content of what he's saying instead of the tone.
Yes.
Anyway, Franz tells her that she ought to stop acting like a child then. Boom. He's dropping some bombs.
Yeah.
He then tells her she should get some rest and then leaves. Elizabeth then reaches down between her skirts and pulls out a bloody hand. This was very confusing to me. I'm like, how many layers is under there? Why are you doing this in front of the footmen? But anyway, she's got blood on her hands, people. Do you understand the metaphor? Yeah, you get it. The end. Whoa.
Holy cow. We've got emotions going from one end of the spectrum to another in this episode.
It was actually a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It was too much. Anyway.
Yeah.
What was your overall opinion of the episode?
I liked it up to the point when she winds up out in the woods with the asshole. Because it was at that moment I was like, oh shit, this is all gonna go south and it's gonna be her fault. Mm-hmm. Even though not really.
I have an unconventional opinion about that we need to talk about.
Oh, well. And so, it was at that point I was like, oh God, of course, everything's going to go south. She's going to get blamed for everything. Blah, 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 blah. So that was a little frustrating. And I am fucking sick and tired of Max.
I want off with his head. Where's the Mexican firing squad when you need them? He is.
That's a few years away, baby.
And he's going to get away with it. He's going to get away with nearly staging this coup because they can't admit that he's tried this.
How about you? What do you think?
I love the drama of it all. I wish I could just scream at people on the street to watch the show because I'm really impressed with how much drama there is, given that it's a historical event. It's really well written and acted and performed, and every week I come to this podcast and I have nothing but praise. I almost wish I had more criticism because it makes for a more interesting podcast when I hate things. But anyway, I was just like, this is great.
No, I mean, you're right. The show has kept me riveted.
Yeah.
And wanting more at the end of every episode. It's like, I want more.
This was the episode where I finished and I was like, do I want more? I feel like the next episode is going to make me sad.
I mean, we only have 2 episodes left.
They have to be happy eventually, right? They're not just going to be sad. Anyway,
I hope so.
Too invested. Particularly in Elisabeth and Franz. I loved them. I loved their scene.
Me too. And I was just so heartbroken at how everything just went to shit so damn fast. And I was just like, no, Franz, you can't be mad at her. No, it's not her fault. She fucking saved both of them.
What frustrates me about Franz is that I think the qualities he likes about Elisabeth are also the things that make her uniquely bad at being an empress.
Yes.
It's this constant tension, and it's impossible for Elisabeth because, she never knows when she's delighting him or when she's pissing him off. It's just an impossible situation for her. And so I was annoyed at him, but then she got in the carriage with Max and I was like,
yeah, team
nobody. She knows of the tension between the brothers, and she was so annoyed that Alexander was hitting on her, but she loves it when Max is hitting on her. She is like, yes, please feed my vanity. And it's just so much more it's so much more inappropriate. She needs to, I don't know, I'm very unimpressed with that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, I get the facts. I get the fact that Max is charismatic. He's mischievous.
He has a pet monkey. Who doesn't love that?
Yeah. But damn, girl, you know the tension between those two? Yeah.
It was like and then she was like, oh, why are you upset about this? You know, you have openly acknowledged that there was a rift between them. And also, like, earlier in the season, she was, like, saying to Max, like, she was dubious of him. So for her now to be, like, buddy-buddy with him is just...
Yeah.
Mad. I do not appreciate it. Happier things, though. I loved the scene where they... at the lake where they talk about the assassination attempt.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they put that in this episode in particular. It's like such an formative experience for Franz. And I think it really shaped his political ideology, and that moment where he realizes that he's sort of got fucked over and he's in a war with Russia now.
Yeah.
Was much more powerful knowing he'd been through that experience. Do you want some historical facts about the event? This attack happened in February of 1853. That's just before he met and became engaged to Elizabeth, like a matter of months.
Okay.
So this is still fresh. So he was doing his usual walking route, I think on the parapet of like one of those military wall things in Vienna. And he leaned over to observe some soldiers exercising below, when suddenly a man rushed forward and stabbed him in the back of the neck with a kitchen knife. The man was stopped by Franz's aide-de-camp and a passerby butcher. I love this butcher, by the way, because Franz later elevated the butcher to nobility, which, like, is amazing. Yes. I need that to become a movie, like The Emperor and the Butcher. You can see it now. And, you know, Franz was hurt and bleeding, but after a period of time in bed, he recovered completely fully, and he was left with a scar. The man who attacked him, please understand that I do not know how to pronounce these names. It was called Janos Lebenyi. Does that sound right?
Works for me.
Does that sound Hungarian? He was Hungarian. He'd previously worked as a tailor's assistant. He'd witnessed the Hungarian Revolution of 1848 and the brutal way it had been subdued with the help of Russia in particular. So there is a link there to Franz's relationship with Russia. Okay. He does sort of owe them one, but he witnessed the hanging of like 13 different generals, so it was like pretty brutal. Yeah. Not a fun time. And he decided to take revenge on Franz by stabbing him in the back. But the thing is, like, he used it. Apparently he ended up stabbing him, but like the knife was the wrong way round. Oh. So he ended up mostly fucking up his collar. He was not like a very good assassin, shall we say. Clearly. He did not plan this out to the intricate details that we have going on in the show. Yeah. Also, why use a kitchen knife? There are better knives. You're literally a tailor.
You know, really, you really didn't have your heart into it, did you?
No, it still ended up hanging. Awkward. But I do think, like, it's interesting to think that, like, this happened, like, he nearly died, and then, like, 3 months later, he met Elizabeth and became engaged. Like, he was definitely in the midst of some kind of post-near-death experience, like, quick, I need to go out and get married and have babies, and what if somebody kills me again, you know?
Yeah. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, anytime you want to throw a little history info into the mix is greatly appreciated, you know.
Yay. Well, good, because I will be.
Awesome.
You don't have a choice. So, one of the more interesting dynamics developing is Elizabeth and Sophie. As I said earlier, I have a bit of a different take on this now. Okay. When first watching the episode, I agreed with Elizabeth that, you know, You don't need a big formal ceremony with pomp and circumstance. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And then on watching the episode for a second time, I realised that maybe Sophie was right about this. I think it could have maybe mitigated some of the, let's say, awkward personal dynamics that were at play there. It would have definitely made it much harder for Alexander's fragile male ego to take offense at everything.
Very true. That's very true.
I think even today I was thinking about the G20 summit recently that everyone had, and those kinds of situations are very controlled and orchestrated environments, and that's for a reason, because you don't want people's personalities to come into play. And I know, like, Franz and Elisabeth are all like, we're young, we want to do things differently. But I think this is one of those times where they were proved wrong by how events turned. Yeah. And it wouldn't kill them to listen to Sophie sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, there is a time and place for diplomacy. And, now that, you mention it, with tensions being as high as they were, and the situation being fraught with peril. I mean, you've got armies on both sides of your empire. You might want to sit down and have a multi-utensiled meal kind of activity happening to help forge a less heated situation. But I will say that I think do you think that Franz knew that Alexander would put Elisabeth in a situation where he would be saying, so, if you lift up that skirt of yours, we could have ourselves a deal. Do you think that he knew that was a possibility?
I don't know how he would have known.
Yeah, me neither.
It's not like it came up in the conversation. You know who did know? Max. And he did fuck all to stop it. Max just walked off and left her alone with him. Franz didn't know shit, and I think he would have stayed with her if he knew. And it's weird of her to, blame Franz for Alexander's actions. I don't think he did know, but then when she told him, he wasn't like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. It's the other problem I have with Franz. He's like, he's sort of like, well, you didn't handle it very well. Just brutal.
To which you want to say, well, fuck you very much then, dear. We're really going to need that explicit thing on label on this show.
I feel like this whole situation was really above her pay grade, and everyone's getting annoyed at her for not being able to handle this incredibly difficult situation. But then I also felt like Elisabeth kept putting herself forward for it. It was kind of like, no, you could take a back seat, but she's like, no, I'm going to go on the hunt, and it's like, but you've been an empress for 2 months. You might want to take people's advice at the same time.
But we, of course, know that's something that her sister would have done.
Yeah.
But not something that Elisabeth would do.
This is, again, what I think, Franz prefers to be married to Elisabeth on a personal level, but then when it comes to her public role, he would prefer someone like her sister. It's the absolute...
Exactly.
But then it's like... Well, I don't know. It's complicated. Because it's also like, hey, Elisabeth, stop saying that you can be an empress. And the first episode, she was like, I'll be an empress. But then she's making absolutely no effort to try and, calm herself down. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
oh, yeah.
Girl, you're... his criticism about her showing some restraint is not untrue.
Yes. Now, you need to simmer down now.
I just also think, in that moment, I was like, shut up, Franz! Not right now! Not right now, Franz! This is a good critique, but not right now. So one thing I think was interesting with the conversation with Sophie is how, like, resentful she was, how powerful Elizabeth has become so quickly. You know, traditionally queens were incredibly vulnerable until they'd secured an heir. And in Sophie's case, that fucking took her a while. It's kind of complicated, actually, because, like, in Sophie's case, she wasn't the queen, and the previous emperor had epilepsy, and he couldn't have a child, so there was always this sort of responsibility and pressure on her. It was like, your husband's next in line, quick, produce an heir. And she's sort of had to fight her way into that powerful position, and she's, like, annoyed at Elizabeth because she's so blasé about, like, all this power she wields. And I think, like, there's some kind of weird generational thing where the person who fought for the change grows resentful at the younger person for just assuming that they have these rights and not taking them for granted rather than...
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, Sophie, it's not her fault that you've raised a feminist icon of a son. Like...
I mean, good on you, but...
Don't be mad about it. Why are you such a hater?
I am really interested in seeing where things go in this next episode, since, basically, by the end of this episode, Elizabeth has basically truly fumbled the ball completely down the field, and, basically kind of proven Sophie correct. That, it's like, no, should have sat your ass back down and helped me plan the dinner. That kind of thing. And, to top it all off, guess who's decided to show up? It's Aunt Flo. Aunt Flo's here for a visit. So, you don't even, it's like, in the end, you don't even have that to lord over Sophie,
And I bet you that isn't gonna be more opportunity. Like, there seems to be, like, a huge rift between Franz and Elizabeth. Like, I don't see her getting pregnant anytime soon,
Yeah, I don't think there'll be any more lakeside rumps happening anytime soon.
No opportunities for exfoliation, no.
Which makes me sad, because I love that part of the show.
It's so romantic. Damn it, just let them be happy. What about Alexander and Maria? I thought the guy who played Alexander was like, he looked like the human incarnation of the big bad wolf.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. As soon as he showed up on screen, it was like, okay, well done casting. Excellent job. Yeah, he had creepy AF written all over him from jump.
Very charismatic actor, though. It was like, wow, he's intense. Like, he reads psychopathic very well.
Well, I was thinking, he would make in another film, he would probably make a pretty good Rasputin.
Ooh. Let's get him to do all the Russian figures.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, he was fantastic, and I too loved the actress that played his wife. I really enjoyed her interactions with Elizabeth a great deal.
I want to read up on Maria now, because she seems fun, and I like that she has all these animals.
Yes, me too. She has a menagerie.
I thought they were interesting to introduce now, because you've sort of got to look at what a more typical royal marriage was like, and this weird sort of dysfunctional dynamic where the guy philanders and the woman has to have all these pet projects.
Yeah.
I hope they come back I want to see them again. They're like, I feel like they are really funny, like, well, maybe less Alexander, but I found Alexander's fragile masculinity incredibly amusing to laugh at.
Yeah, same here. I was like, oh, dude, you missed twice, and she just lifts up the gun and bam!
He was so mad.
Oh my god, he was so mad. Oh my lord.
I really like the way the show's like woven in all these historical figures like Johann Strauss and stuff, because it really grounds the show in a time and place, and also you get to like scream at like, oh my god, I know who that is, which is fun.
No, I really enjoyed them. My guess is we may wind up seeing them again, given the fact that, there now is a war happening. How about our dear friend Maxie?
Ugh. As a Slytherin, I very much appreciate a scheme, but this one's exceptionally ill thought out. I think this is stupid. He's shown his hand way too early, I think, because now France has declared war on Russia.
Yeah.
There is literally nothing in it for France in backing him as an emperor. I mean, and then all the ministers now know he was in talks with Napoleon behind everyone's back. That leaves him exceptionally vulnerable.
He's an idiot.
He's absolutely stupid.
Yeah.
If he was actually better at scheming, I think I would appreciate him more, but he just seems stupid. And when Franz looked him up and he was like, no, diplomat. I was like, yeah.
That's pretty much right there.
He has no tact.
Oh, man.
How sympathetic are you to the fact that he has no role? Because that seems to be the drum he was banging.
How sympathetic am I? Not very. I mean, honestly, while I think, Franz is right, giving him something to do would at least keep his hands busy. I don't see him as someone that would be an ally of Franz's, and so what is Franz supposed to do with him? He doesn't trust him. That's for damn sure. And as soon as word gets out about his little backdoor deal, really not gonna trust him. Yeah, it's like he was saying that even before Max started all of these double dealings. So, the minute he finds out about them, shit is going to get real. And, probably send Max out to the front lines.
I also find him like whiny, like, oh, I don't have anything to do. Like, A, you're offered a role, so don't try that shit. And B, like, we've seen so many women in this show working the system. They don't have any formal roles, but they're still trying to wield power in their own right. And I feel like he wants the power, but without earning it.
Yeah.
What has he done to earn Franz's loyalty? All he does is party and fuck around.
Seriously. He's done nada. Not a damn thing.
Get a monkey and host a party and think that you can become the governor of Bohemia? Like, fuck off.
Oh my god, I laughed at that. Like, let me be the governor of Bohemia.
Based on what, though? Based on what?
Seriously.
Do you even speak the language as well? It's like... you're not a figure anybody could respect as their leader. With the flashback, it seems to be like his resentment is just built on the fact that his mother isn't giving him enough attention. It's like,
yeah, you're
a grown man. Please get over this.
Yeah, that was the thing that came to my mind as we got through the show. My mind kept going back to that flashback, thinking to myself, "Oh, is this all because Mommy didn't love you more? Is that the problem, Maxie?"
I mean, it's just pathetic, because it's not like she's horrible to you or ignores you. She's just, like, more obviously interested in the guy that's emperor.
Right.
He's emperor. Like...
Yeah. He's emperoring. He's doing something, I have no patience for that man. And I wonder just what fresh hell he's going to be up to in this next episode.
It's also really frustrating me because I know that he's not going to get the comeuppance he deserves until he gets killed by those Mexicans. So
right.
It's potentially many seasons of fuckery. Where's the Mexicans when you need them? Save us from this. One of the interesting plot twists was we finally got a bit of an explanation about how Leontine / Ava got into the whole revolutionary gig.
Yeah.
Given that there's a real Leontine von Apathy, do you think there's...
How did that work? I mean, there's a real Leontine out there. Oh.
That was my assumption, right? Because she must have... The real Leontine von Apathy was invited to court.
Mm-hmm.
And then on her way to court, maybe they kidnapped her or killed her or... I know that's pretty dark, but I'm wondering how else they could have arranged this otherwise.
Well, and if that was the case, aren't there people back at her home that would be a little concerned? That they would know something was up. So I need
I doubt
more
she's writing to them, but they must assume that she's made it to court.
Yeah, I need more answers. I need to know what happened to the real Leontine.
It's only been 2 months as well. Like, maybe they're just like, oh, she's busy, she hasn't had time to write. I don't know. I just assumed kidnapped and killed. That was my first...
Yeah.
It seems kind of dumb, though, because what if, like, they've already met one person that knew her as a child. Like, what if there's more nobility out there that know her father or something?
Yeah.
And it also seems like kind of a waste of time, quite frankly.
Oh my gosh.
Do you not think, like, there are more efficient ways of tracking Franz's movements than by getting
someone in there as the lady in waiting to the Empress? Yeah, I mean, I think that there are probably positions in court that would avail you of that kind of surveillance without being...
Honestly, I feel like you could just get one of the butlers or something in on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look at
hire
his schedule.
Someone from inside, instead of trying to bring someone from the outside in.
I mean, obviously there is some kind of weird network within the servants because they used that for the shoes earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, like, knowing that guy tried to kill him with a kitchen knife and he didn't plan it at all makes me think, like, they are overcooking, they're overbaking this cake? Is that the expression?
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, having someone in with the ladies in waiting, that is so risky.
It seems like
even though the Austrian Empire was huge, the individuals that are, interacting in court, that's a small group.
Yeah.
It's a small insular group, like marrying cousins and all that other kind of stuff. You would think that this would not have flown. I don't think she would have gotten this far.
It's such a huge risk for such little payoff of information.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine she's ever been in the room with Franz that much. I was also thinking, like, so they plan on killing Franz. Fab. Yeah. He has brothers. You can't just kill one man. To take down an institution, it's going to take more than one death.
Yeah.
Unless you're Franz Ferdinand. But that's a different story. Just like again, I'm gonna need to see their notes because this is just such a dumb plan.
We need some more backstory. Come on now.
Hopefully it'll make more sense later on. I love that what I bring to the table is me critiquing people's evil plans. It's like, this isn't very, like, be more evil.
That's why I love the Slytherin in you.
Okay, so themes. I was thinking the episode's called The Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think Alexander can be compared to the big bad wolf.
Yes.
For many reasons. He's definitely got a guy who's preying on women sort of vibes.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a huge element of the patriarchal society they live in anyway, or these women are kind of vulnerable.
Yep.
But I thought Max would also definitely be described as a predator in this situation.
Oh, God, yes.
manipulating and in some ways kind of gaslighting Elizabeth is.
I was just about to say gaslighting. It's reprehensible how these men, minus Franz, but Alexander and Max, how they are treating her. And they have, I think, because she is a little unpredictable and wild, they have this expectation that she's going to be up for a party. So I think it's just gross.
And obviously there was the final scene where Elizabeth had blood on her hands, which was one of the heaviest handed metaphors in a show full of it.
Yes.
There's definitely this conflict of like the repercussions of the royal family's actions. I think she was sort of being a bit naive, like we're always criticizing her for being naive, but she has this sort of blasé attitude, like she doesn't realize that the impact her actions have, especially now that she's the Empress. Franz definitely knows the consequences of what's happening, and that's why he looked so devastated. But with Elizabeth, she was just sort of like, oh, we're at war, okay, yeah, fun.
Oh god,
she's going on a journey. So there's definitely, I think that's going to become more important in the final 2 episodes. I agree. And another thing, like, there were a few bird chirping noises this episode, which, we've got to point out.
There were a few, but, they weren't as heavy-handed with the bird metaphors in this episode as they have been in the past. I mean, they could have at least, like, maybe gone hunting for some birds.
For some birds, yeah. Like, where some pigeons shooting when you need it.
Yeah.
But I did think, like, there's this emphasis of nature in this show, like, particularly in the first episode in this one. And the literature student in me can't help but associate those kind of landscapes with the concept of the sublime, which was very important and part of the romantic poetry thing that Elizabeth loves to write and read and live out like she's some kind of heroine in a poem. And I think I was thinking about the difference between just like a pretty landscape and the sublime. And what was it? I think it was like Kant said that the object has to be slightly terrifying for it to be sublime. And that's kind of the feeling that the forest was giving me when they were walking around. And even in the episode, there's this discussion of like, oh, it's getting dark. Are you not afraid? And she's like, no, I'm fine. Doesn't the princess twirling? There's this sense that the forest and nature can be incredibly dangerous. And even in the first episode, when she's like riding out on her horse and she nearly like falls off the cliff.
Rides off the cliff, yeah.
I think there's this... there's always this tension with Elizabeth that she loves the nature and the beauty, but she doesn't really acknowledge the danger of the situation. Is interesting. It's probably very similar to her attitude to court life. Sophie's always trying to get her to take things more seriously, and she's just being very... not ambivalent to the danger, but just like...
she's being blasé. I mean, she's being blasé about the whole thing. I have to wonder, do you think that she's going to kind of wake up a bit to, now that she's had this experience, is she going to wind up trying to not necessarily mind her P's and Q's, but to take things a little more seriously, I guess.
I guess I would want her to. I think that's the only way she's going to survive. She's going to be crushed in the court if she doesn't stop being more cautious. Like Franz says, show some fucking restraint. Yeah. But I think we probably won't get there until the final episode.
Yeah.
because there's you gotta hit rock bottom first, and I actually don't think she's hit rock bottom yet. I think in her head she's still like, everyone's a mean. Let me go get drunk with Max.
The reality bomb hasn't quite gone off on her yet. Yeah.
The show makes you think about these things visually as well as like intellectually, like saying them in the scenes. The motifs can be very, very heavy-handed, but at least they're attempting to put things like this in, because some shows don't even bother. They're just...
Yeah, that is true.
We won't mention the shows that I'm thinking about.
Nope, we won't. Nope.
So, favorite scenes?
I think for me, I loved the scene where, they were talking about, well, let's plan this event, and it was like, no, let's go hunting. It'll be fun. And I thought that I loved that exchange. I think that happened between, the three of them as, this plan was being hatched. And I was totally in for it, thinking, yes, the kids are going to get away with this. It's going to be awesome. Yay. And then Sophie shows up and it's like, oh, damn.
I love that little family dinner scene, because it was like, yeah, they would have to have family dinners together. Even royalty has awkward family dynamics to grapple with.
Yes.
I thought that was really good.
I liked the way that they shot the hunting scene with Elisabeth and Alexander. You speak of the sublime and the menacing aspect of things. Even before the boar showed up, you could feel the menace. And it was the lighting, the blocking, the whole 9 yards. I thought it was really, really well done.
I think why he reminds us of the Hungry Wolf caricature is because the forest is such a central part of like German folklore, and Little Red Riding Hood is a part of that, and just like the forest felt like one of those scary forests that you see as a child in movies, and you're like, why are you there alone?
Yeah, this is you need, especially alone with this thing. Yeah,
this show is beautifully filmed.
Yes,
the locations are always 10 out of 10.
I mean, how on Netflix you can always skip the intro.
I never do, but yes.
Me neither. Me neither. I never do for this show. It's crazy.
It's beautiful, and like it always, especially this episode, with the way that it linked in with the flashback, it felt like it was sort of bridging the past with the future in a way. It was just, I love this show. I really love, obviously, the scene at the lake. Another beautifully shot landscape. And the fact that they were having sex like in and amongst nature is just so on brand for her. It was like, it was very, very romantic with a capital R. I really liked the fencing scene as well. It was nice to have like a bit of action like stuck in the show was really, and I like that it was set in like these really formal gardens at the palace with all of the hedges and everything. There's something a bit comical about how angry they were. They were like really raging, and then like the pristine
everything is
gardens.
So prim and it's like, oh, everything's so orderly. Meanwhile, hack. That was a great scene between the two of them. And the way that they shot it, it makes Max look like he's just this little tiny man.
He's so short.
Yes, this little tiny man next to his brother. That was amazing.
I love that they emphasized how much Max has to look up at him. Because it's such a little thing, but it makes such a huge difference in their I think, like, in the first episode, I felt like Max would be the more dominant personality type because Franz is a bit more reserved. But he, in those scenes where they're fighting, you can see like Franz really holds his own. He's not a pushover as like I thought he was in the first episode.
He is a soldier.
Yeah,
and and not to say that Max isn't. But
he isn't. He won't even join the Navy.
Nah. But yeah, I mean, that was a great scene. Just a great scene.
And like in the context of his neck scar, the fact that he was like able to fight for himself and push Max off of him, I just like, honestly, the way they constructed this episode and all the little details they dotted to like, they really understand these characters. And they really put everything in to make you understand them as best as you can in the episode. I respect it. I want to give the writer like a high five. Least favorite.
Oh God.
I thought the CGI boar was one of the worst things. Oh,
that looked like one of the. There was a video game that I played many, many years ago on my one of my Nintendo consoles. It was called Turok. And it's this dude that has to fight these, prehistoric dinosaurs and stuff like that. And the CGI that they had for these things that they would have to fight, it looked almost as bad as that, and, we're talking about back in the like early 90s, late 80s. Yeah, it was bad.
You just reminded me of like, there used to be a Nintendo NES game that I used to play when I was a kid. It came out in like the late 80s. Where you would shoot at ducks and then this dog would pop up and hold up the duck if you just shot at it with like a rifle. That's kind of what the graphics were like. Everyone, please go Google Duck Hunt because I used to love that game.
God,
anyway.
It was so bad.
It was real bad.
It was bad.
I was sort of like, that's a boar? It looks like a hairy mess.
It's a hedge that is on legs. Oh my God! Yeah,
I also love that they emphasized that it's out of season. Like you're forbidden from hunting it.
Yes,
but he does it anyway because that's classic.
Does it anyway.
Oh my God! Is Elisabeth the metaphor for the boar? And then she shot herself. Wait, this should have gone on the teams. She had to take herself out of the equation.
No.
Did you come up with any scenes you didn't like, or would that be?
Oh no! The boar. That was. I mean, I was just kind of laughing. When I was like, wait. Oh man, boy. They must have blown the CGI budget on the costumes or something, because that was a damn shame.
Well, at least no animals were actually hurt in the making of this show. So
that is true.
Favorite costumes and locations.
Well, I thought that the location where they had the hunt was beautiful. In a wild sort of way. I also thought that the fact that Franz and Elisabeth are playing around in the water, and something, it looked like it was cold outside.
Yeah.
It didn't look like it was a beautiful sunny day when, splashing around in a probably glacier fed stream would be a delight. That shit looked cold, man. But I loved the carefree nature of that scene, and the
I
costuming.
was sort of like, why is the horse involved? Like, there's this one moment where she makes a joke about his dick, and then the horse goes "Roo" in the background, and then that makes Franz laugh. It's
yes.
just,
oh Lord. But I could wax poetic about all of the costumes that they had, but they had one thing in it that we hadn't seen in some time. Hats! We had hats!
We had hats for days.
Hats. Oh my God, the hats were magnificent.
Oh my God. I loved the one where when they're greeting Alexander and Maria and it's like at night, you can barely see anything, but there's this close-up of Elisabeth's face and the netting on her hat is like this bright pink.
Yes.
Everything's dark and then you've got like this pink. It's just amazing. They really think about the way the colours work in the scenes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love.
Oh, that was wonderful. Loved
gigantic, dramatic hats. Hats.
The hat with the. I don't know if it was a pheasant feather or what, but it just had this flair to it. It was wonderful.
I love how like she sort of turned into like a Germanic cliche when she went hunting.
Waiting for the accordions to kind of start coming along.
Yeah. Where's her lederhosen? I loved her whole hunting outfit actually, and that she had like that little black bow tie and shirt underneath, and it was giving it sort of a very gigantic puffy skirt, but it was still quite an androgynous look, which I thought was very appropriate considering that she's, I guess, intruding on a male pursuit is how you could put it, or at least traditionally male.
Yep.
The plastic sunglasses threw me a bit. I was like, that's a choice. It worked with the outfit, though.
It kind of reminded me, in that moment of when we watched Marie Antoinette and all of those crazy ass costumes. Here we have these like little moments that are just like, wait, what? Like the netting, it's like, okay, we're just gonna like have a little tiny itty bitty Moulin Rouge moment.
Yeah. But it really works like with the aesthetic of the show.
Yeah.
And it's always good to like remind you that you're actually, this is a costume. This isn't a documentary. And then like in another scene I noticed that Sophie was wearing these like big gold hoop earrings and I was like, okay, like we're really going for it this week.
What we doing,
with Jenny? The hat?
Jenny from the block? Oh Lord, this show! I tell you,
things like that would probably bother me in another show, but
this one is like, go on,
yeah, go for it,
go on, you can do it, go ahead. Okay.
Performer of the episode, you get to go first this week.
Oh well, hell. Elisabeth, of course. I loved Franz this week.
Yeah.
We saw so many different sides of him. The fury that he had at his brother during that dueling match. I mean, it's like, I think when we've seen him in previous episodes, he's been kind of soft-spoken and really, I don't want to say not masculine because he's been completely masculine. But you got the fact that he was the emperor. He was not the same person that was, holding his medal in his hand and squeezing it until his hand bled that we saw in the first episode, remember during the hanging?
Oh, that meant God, I love Franz. That was such a good scene.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, those two were awesome. I thought that Sophie was really well done. Those three for me, I think really, really did it for me.
They're like the heart of the show, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
If they're firing, then the show's kicking it.
Yep.
I would choose Franz and Philip Fressant again. I think the moment where I mentioned this earlier, but when Alexander calls him on his shit on his bluff in that scene was just exceptionally well acted. And the moment after Alexander left, and it's a completely silent moment, but he just completely crumbles. And there's this real weight of responsibility that you just see in absolutely all of his scenes. And he does most of this silently as well, so it's very impressive. Yeah. I love that. Even when he's doing stuff that annoys me, I'm like, oh, my poor Franz. My poor Franz. He has a lot to deal with.
Yes, he does. Got a lot on his plate. And it was all shoved on him, like, unexpectedly, you know? He's kind of like, wait, my dad should go next, right? That's not my turn.
That's something we should talk about. The fact that he had absolutely no agency when it came to becoming the emperor. It was thrust upon him by his, like, very conniving. I don't like using that word because it's, like, very gendered, but his mother was the one that placed this responsibility on him way before he was ready for it, and he has had to respond. And I think he's doing a good job, but he shouldn't have to be. I don't think there's anything wrong with his dad.
No, I think his dad is perfectly fine.
Carl, you're a dude. When Carl was calling Sophie out on her shit and being like, you need to talk about her more, I was like, oh, Carl.
Here we go. God damn.
Carl, I think he is probably more insightful than Sophie is willing to give him credit for.
Oh, absolutely. She's still got her head all hung up in what's-his-face from Sweden.
Or Van Wasser. Just because he's tall. I swear that's it. Like, and he's wearing a dead thing on him.
He's got his hair. Franz.
He is very, like, Swedish cliche looking, isn't he? So, important question. How many birds out of 5?
I'm gonna give it 4.5.
Ooh. That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm gonna go 5. Just because I think, especially on rewatch, I think the show is doing like 70,000 billion things at the same time. Yeah. You don't even notice.
Yeah, you don't feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you watch some shows and it's just exposition overload and you're like, please calm down. They did it a lot in Poldark, where within the first 10 minutes they would just dump, like, hey, did you know that the French had a revolution and Napoleon has suddenly taken charge? And you'd be like, okay, calm down. Like with this, they just drip feed the information as you need it.
Yeah.
So much better. I'm sorry, Poldark fans.
No, we love Poldark. Don't get us wrong. We love it. But this is incredible. Writing, acting, the whole 9 yards, everything, soup to nuts, as they say.
The CGI. The CGI is its one.
They gotta. The CGI. Y'all gotta cough up some more quaint for that. Okay.
Do we need to, like, start some kind of group fund for CGI for season 2? Because we can crowdfund this motherfucker some better CGI. Because I'll do it.
Oh, God, that's hilarious. Oh, my goodness. Well, let's hit the inbox. And we have a letter that says, "Hi, ladies. This episode started so sweetly with the lovebirds, heart eyes emoji, and then it all goes pear-shaped." You got it. Sophie declares the honeymoon is over and the war cabinet must get churning because the Russians are advancing. But then Max turns up in the meeting. Franz is annoyed. However,
who invited him?
Exactly. However, Sophie points out that Max needs to be kept busy when Franz confronts her. After all, idle hands are the devil's tools. However, after being offered a token job as head of Navy by his brother, Max spits. People steal when given scraps, including him.
That's why he's building the railway. He knows.
He's going to try and steal everything. He starts to plot against Franz seriously. If Max wasn't clear with his words, he was definitely clear in his sword fighting with his brother. Maybe Franz really needs to worry about Max instead of the hungry peasants at the moment. Shocked eyes emoji. Max's plotting is really starting to gather momentum. Getting all his ducks in a row, meeting with the cabinet circus, suggesting the emperor's losing it, and they should back an alternative, him, and then sidling up to the Russian dude in the forest, and he manages to plant the seed of doubt into the deal that has just been made between Russia and Austria. Unfortunately, Elisabeth...
Again, not a good plan. Not a good plan.
Unfortunately, Elisabeth inadvertently tips the Russian over the edge when she saves his arse and his massive ego from dying by killing the boar. Pig, not Russian. Winky face emoji. With a single shot. How dare she? Thereby destroying any deals made during the hunt. Poor Elisabeth. It was all going so well. All this empressing stuff. If only they let her and Franz get on with it. Alone. And deep down, poor Franz really just wants to be free and naked with Elisabeth. Franz, wake up and smell the sauerkraut. BTW, some beautiful hats this episode. Elisabeth's hat with pheasant feathers, heart eye emojis, and Sophie's enormous black thing. How does she balance it on her head? Gorgeous.
Hat pins.
Yes.
Hat pins, babes.
Also, great character development happening with backstories starting to come forth. Can't wait. Clapping emoji. Ciao until next time. Maria from Australia. Thank you.
Maria. So much going on.
I know, right?
I also love that line about if it smells like sauerkraut, it's unlikely to be, what is it, like chocolate? I think it's like mousse or chocolate mousse or something. I don't know.
Something like that.
That girl is right, but I hate her. You know, she's got like the most sourpuss face on the planet. And the hair.
Now, was she the one that Max chewed all over her neck? Or
no,
did they get rid of that
looking.
One? Okay.
Yeah, she's gone. By the way, is there only 3 of them left?
Wow.
Should I have been keeping a running tally of them? Okay. Because I was trying to work out how many they were, and then it got confusing because Maria's ladies in waiting came out on their walk, and I was like, I can't. I need to get, like, because she's supposed to have 6 ladies in waiting.
Yes.
And if she's down to only 3, then we've got big problems here.
Oh, Lord. Well.
Okay.
What have we got coming up?
Episode 5. The title is The Shoes. Maximilian gathers support for an evil plan, while Elisabeth's well-intentioned gesture backfires, leading her to befriend her dubious maid, Leontine.
Oh my God. This just sounds like a slow-moving freight accident. We're going to be sitting there watching it going, no.
Remember when they were happy? Do you remember? In my head, I'm singing Send in the Clowns, but instead of the clowns, I've replaced the clowns with Mexican firing squad because I'm done with Max. I want him gone.
You just
Send
need
him
to
off
stop.
to Mexico.
You just need to stop.
I also love that the description is fully acknowledging that it's evil. What he's doing is just not even just a plan. It's an evil plan.
It's an evil plan. Yeah, it's an evil plan. I love it.
I can't wait to find out what the guy who lent all the money is going to say about him going to war.
Yeah.
And
be like, so, that money that you got for the train, it's still for the train, right?
What is confusing is I know that knowing the events of the Crimean War, warping my perspective on what can happen and what should happen, I should really let it go, because it's not like Max was actually planning a coup in real life.
No.
I don't know why I'm trying to make this fit with real life events. Like, it's not the same, Rita. But I'm sort of like, but they don't get involved in the Crimean War. Like,
oh,
so
God.
what's gonna happen?
You gotta let that reality go, my friend.
I've just got to let it go. Let it
go. Yeah, sorry, no.
But I am curious to, like, I wonder if we'll get to the same places as history, but just in a really convoluted way. Probably. That's what the show tends to do.
Oh, probably so. Oh, my goodness. So, kids, that's all from us this time. We'll be back next week to discuss episode 5 of The Empress. If you have opinions and would like them to be read out in our inbox section, then please email us at inthebooksnetwork@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at inthebooks. And please remember to rate and review and share the podcast with your friends. Thank you so much. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.